Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Fahim, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, folks, and welcome back to the Lightning Strike. Joining me in the studio today is Mark Ferry and Ken DeLuke, and our guest for this segment is Judge Jennifer Barron. Judge Barron, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Congratulations on your show. It's good to be here with you, Mohammed, and Mark, and Ken, and Tyree.
Okay. And one of the things that I wanted to really ask you is, why do you want to be a judge?
Okay, so I am a judge already.
Okay.
I was appointed in February by Mary Kay O'Brien and the unanimous vote of the Illinois Supreme Court. And I'm excited to serve the people of DuPage County in this way. It's the culmination of my career. I practiced for 25 years as an attorney. I did civil litigation. I was a trial attorney for 10 years. I tried multiple cases to verdict in front of juries. I argued in the appellate courts. I argued in front of the Illinois Supreme Court. And so why I think it's important for me to serve as a judge is I bring that experience to the courthouse.
Okay.
And most of the judges in DuPage County, their background is that they were prosecutors. So they're familiar with the criminal court system, which is important. But there aren't enough judges in DuPage County with my background. And civil litigation needs to be represented on the bench. I'm the only circuit court judge right now in DuPage County in the law division, which handles the civil cases. Okay. So I bring that background, and that means I'm familiar with constitutional law issues, which, as you know, is something really important because all those recent decisions we hear about from the U.S. Supreme Court, all of those cases begin at the trial court level. So you need circuit court judges in our local counties who are familiar with civil litigation, constitutional law, the rules of civil procedure. And that's what I bring. Speaking
of that, I mean, what do you think of the topic that we were discussing today about term limits?
For judges or for...
Not judges, for elected officials in general, especially our Congress people and senators. Some of them are getting pretty long in the tooth, and they're still trying to hang on.
Right. Well, I think that would take a constitutional amendment. So that's above my pay grade.
Okay. But what do you think about it?
I think, you guys both really highlighted the pluses and minuses, right? I mean, the benefits are the experience. And if you're not, if you've run multiple times, you maybe don't have to focus as much on fundraising as if you're only serving 1 or 2 terms, that's all you're going to be doing. So there's advantages to term limits, but then there's disadvantages. Like you said, if you get someone really good, you don't want them to move on. So
spoken like a jurist, you don't want to put your neck on the line on that one. Okay.
Well, I think it depends.
Okay. Mark, you have a question for Judge Barron.
Yes. Could you review for us your background and qualifications and tell us about your background and why you believe you're qualified for this position?
Sure. I already spoke to that a little bit, but, as I said, I have 25 years experience arguing in front of juries, in front of appellate panels, in front of the Illinois Supreme Court, writing briefs. Also, I did a lot of pro bono work. So I volunteered with Prairie State Legal Services doing free legal work for people who couldn't afford it. That's a nonprofit in the western suburbs. After Sandy Hook massacre, I felt compelled to act, so I volunteered with the Giffords Law Center Against Gun Violence and did pro bono work for them. I think I bring all of that experience and qualification to the court. And as I was saying to you before the show started, when you have someone sitting in the court, you want someone with those qualifications. It's like an electrician. You don't want your best friend. You want someone that knows how to do the wiring. And this is something I'm qualified for. Don't hire me to do the electrical work in your house. But I am qualified to sit on the bench in DuPage County.
Well, can we ask you to come in and do some plumbing instead of the electrical work?
Definitely not.
Okay. So, folks, you're listening to The Lightning Strike. I'm your host, Mohammed Fahim. With us in the studio today is Judge Jennifer Barron. She's running for the Judicial District 18 in DuPage County for the Circuit Court, I believe. And Ken, you have a question for Judge Barron?
Yes. right now in today's events, there's a very important trial going down in Georgia, and thank God they're allowing cameras into that. Two-part question. One, do you think the rules on federal court cases should now allow cameras in there to be more transparent? And when your court, would you allow that as well?
100%. The court belongs to the people. I'm absolutely for access. There's nothing secret going on in the courthouse. Maybe in a juvenile court that wouldn't be appropriate because they're minors. But in my courtroom, I have no problem with that. I think the people should see what's going on and have the ability to hear cases and hear how attorneys comport themselves and how judges comport themselves. In certain instances, I think you want to protect jurors so that their identities aren't revealed, things like that. But other than that, absolutely.
Okay, quick question now. What is your judicial philosophy? I mean, can you describe how you approach interpreting the law? Sure.
So I think it was in South Africa after the end of apartheid, and Nelson Mandela and his government were rebuilding the judiciary there, and the philosophy was without fear, favor, or prejudice. And I really like that term because that's what I think judges need to do. You apply the law to the facts of the case rigorously without fear, favor, or prejudice.
Okay. And how do you square this circle now? I was looking at your Facebook and your social media. I like to do a little bit of research. And you have made a statement on your Facebook, I believe, about that you're pro-choice.
Correct.
Okay. So as a judge, how do you square that circle when you have taken a position on an issue?
Sure. So the judicial canon of ethics is what judges and judicial candidates are bound by. And Canon 4.1 talks about that, and Comment 13 to 4.1 talks specifically about...
I have no idea about
That's
that,
okay.
but please explain it.
Yeah, let me, please. No, it's a great question because I think there's some misunderstanding. Some candidates have been going out saying you're not allowed to say how you feel. And we are allowed to make statements on how we feel on personal issues. I am 100% pro-choice. I am pro-LGBTQ. But that's different from saying I will rule a certain way in a certain case, because a case can come before me, say, interpreting a statute about abortion or interpreting a statute about a constitutional question. And in those situations, I have to take the law and rigorously apply it to the facts. Everybody has personal feelings about different issues that they're allowed to have.
Yeah, we all have that.
And that's our First Amendment right. We don't give that up when we're a judge. What we do, though, is we set aside our personal feelings and we rigorously apply the facts, the law to the facts of the case.
Okay. So follow up on that. Now, diversity and inclusion. What steps will you take to promote diversity and inclusion in the legal system?
Sure. Well, I am the first Jewish judge in DuPage County. So already I'm bringing some representation, but there's a lot more work to do. And the appointment right before me was the first black woman to be appointed and to serve in DuPage County as well. So Mary Kay O'Brien, the Supreme Court Justice who has the appointment power, she did a rigorous vetting process based on qualifications, but also representation matters. And so that's reflected in Chantel Porter's appointment and then my appointment as the first Jewish judge. And what we can do as circuit court judges, we have the appointment power for the 33 associate judges.
Really?
So we try to, one thing we've been talking about is how do we create a pipeline so that there's more people to choose from. Representation is extremely important, and right now our court in DuPage County is not reflecting the citizens of DuPage County the way that it should. So that is something that we're mindful of, and that's why we want to keep the firsts that we've got going and expand that to include other people.
Sounds good. Thank you. And folks, you're listening to The Lightning Strike. I'm your host, Muhammad Fahim. We come every Sunday morning, 9 to 10 on Chicago's progressive talk radio station, WCPT 820 AM, heartlandsignal.com. Also, you can go back on those websites and check us out. You can listen live. The number to call in if you have a question for Judge Barron is 877-763-9278. And back in the studio with me is Ken DeLuke and Mark Ferry. Ken, you have a question for Judge Barron.
Yes, given the social economic discrepancies in the criminal system, where those who are rich get to walk home at the end of the arraignment, and those who don't have to stay in jail, what is your position on the no-cash bail ideas that are coming forth now?
Right. So the Safety Act is what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So that, as you know, was passed and was upheld by the Supreme Court, the Illinois Supreme Court. And it was, I don't think anyone wants people staying in jail because they don't have the money. That's not a reason. We keep people in jail because they're dangerous, not because they're poor. And so that's what the Safety Act was enacted to address, and it was, bipartisan. The Republican State's Attorney for DuPage County, Bob Berlin, assisted in drafting that legislation. Now that's a situation where I can't comment on how I would interpret a statute, mm-hmm. especially it's been ruled upon by the Illinois Supreme Court.
Right.
But I think the fact that it was bipartisan, the fact that it was passed to address disparity, I think is a good thing for everybody.
Okay. Some of the current legal issues that you feel are important that we as citizens of this country should be paying attention to. Can you talk about that?
Sure. I mean, with respect to the judiciary, I think people are looking at what's happening in Washington, D.C. with the U.S. Supreme Court. And people have a lot of questions about conflicts of interest. People have a lot of questions about term limits. People have questions about qualifications. Mm-hmm. And so this judicial election, obviously, it's about me. I was the person appointed. But right. I also feel because I was appointed and because I beat out many other candidates, including some of the people that are indicating they may run against me, it's very important to me to win, not just for me, but to justify the faith that was put in me and to support the concept that we need qualified people sitting on the bench in DuPage County, that it's not enough to just have someone there, that we have to have someone who knows what they're doing, who's able to interpret the law, who's familiar with the Constitution, who's familiar with rules of civil procedure. So I think having qualified judges is something that's important to everyone because these cases, people think, well, it doesn't really matter. I'm never going to be in court. But a lot of cases come before the court, and these are the ones that end up in the U.S. Supreme Court. And it's consequential to all of us. So I think people are beginning to understand how important judicial elections are. You're
so right on that. Folks, when you go out to vote, I have always felt that judges are not highlighted at all during the campaigns also. A lot of people don't know anything about judges when they see that ballot in front of them, okay? They can see some of the people that have been, sending out all the flyers and putting out those yard signs and all of those things. Like the police are our first line of defense, judges are our second line of defense. I mean, these are the people who really interpret the laws that keep our country safe. And it boggles my mind. People don't pay any attention at all to finding out more about the judicial candidates and learning about their backgrounds. Most people don't. Ken?
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's always bothered me. I mean, I've been following politics all my life, and I'm the same way. I'll look at this big list of judges and names I've never even seen before, so who do I pick? Well, this name sounds interesting. There's no process to it. There should be a judicial fact sheet that's online that people before elections should be able, maybe they go while they're waiting in line, they do a QR code to go on this, and they could say the positions of all the different judges, so at least they have some basis to make an intelligent decision on who they're trying to elect.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I mean, so it's on me as the candidate to try and get out to as many events as I can, to knock on as many doors as I can, put things on social media. Mm-hmm. I wasn't on social media before I became a candidate. That wasn't something of interest to me.
Right.
I had about 70 friends on Facebook, and now I have, almost 2,000. Because it's my job. It's not people's job to figure it all out. It's my job to tell people. So that's why I make a point of saying what I believe.
But you need the platform to reach to the populace and not just a few select people.
Great idea.
Right. On that note, Judge Barron, thank you very much for coming into our studios this morning. It was a pleasure to have you. Can we have your social media accounts or your website? What's your website?
Yeah, it's judgejenniferbarron.com.
Okay. Please make sure, folks, that you type in judgejenniferbarron.com, because I tried to just put judgebarron.com and I'm coming up with
some other guy.
Barron Thompson for judge in 2024.
No.
Okay.
Barron is spelled B as in boy, A-R-R-O-N.
On that note, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you. Folks, you're listening into the lightning strike. Oh, man, come on. That's such a great name for the show. We're going to be throwing some more light on the other judges that are running. And I'm focusing on judges more so than any other candidates in the beginning. And we have got Judge Barron in the studio with us today. Judge Barron, thank you very much for joining us. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.